Good Sunday afternoon, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Southern Oregon Weather Weekend Update. It's been a week since I last posted an update, and we have a lot to talk about. So first, for our short-term forecast, I want to discuss when we could see our next chance for rain. I want to review our teleconnections. Do they signal a warmer than normal or a cooler than normal start to May? And then for our long-range discussion, I want to give you a preview of what June might look like based on the latest sea surface temperature trends. So first, our NOAA satellite imagery here shows clouds pushing into our area, but we do have relatively sunny and dry conditions to our southeast. That's because there's a large area of high pressure over the Four Corners region, and we have a big trough in the Gulf of Alaska. And we're kind of in between these two competing influences. One under southwest flow, that's led to some more humid conditions over the last few days. And the models are suggesting that over the next week or so, this area of low pressure moves closer to the west coast, and we go into a progressively more showery and cooler pattern to start May. So first, I want to show you a couple models here. This is the GFS, the American model. It's suggesting we could see a slight chance of showers tomorrow morning, but it keeps most of the precipitation out of the Rogue Valley. It keeps it mainly along the coast and farther north of the Umpqua Divide. However, I'm more inclined to trust the Canadian model because it has the support of some of the other models as well. It pushes the precipitation just a little bit farther south, and I think there's a chance that some areas in the Rogue Valley could pick up maybe up to 1/10 of an inch of precipitation tomorrow morning. Some areas will just see sprinkles. Some areas might see nothing at all. But I'm inclined to trust the Canadian model a little bit more. So that, again, calls for possibly some showers tomorrow morning. Here, this is a loop of the Canadian ensemble, and you can see what I was talking about. This trough, these blue colors here, pushing closer to the west coast as we head into the beginning of May. This ridge departs to the east. So what that means is that we could see increasing chances for showers as we head into May. Here's the Weather Channel's 10-day forecast. We see again some chance for showers tomorrow, and then greater chances for showers in Medford on Thursday, and then heading into the weekend. The Weather Prediction Center's 7-day forecast for rainfall shows that from a couple different precipitation events, we could see up to 1/4 of an inch of rain for many areas of the Rogue Valley. So again, that isn't going to come all on one day. That's likely to come over the course of a week as a couple weak batches of showers move through. So what do our teleconnections tell us about the end of the month and then the beginning of May? Well, right now, the atmospheric angular momentum is rising. This plot here shows that it's currently neutral. However, we're kind of in a negative AAM look right now with ridging over the Four Corners and this trough in the Gulf of Alaska. However, as the AAM rises, we can expect to see more of a cooler and wetter pattern for Southern Oregon. Here on the bottom, you see the correlation with a positive AAM in May, and you can see these blue colors are much more widespread over the western part of the U.S. So more troughing, cooler and wetter conditions. What about our PNA index? Well, currently it's quite positive, and it's supposed to become more positive over the next week. This is what a positive look gives us at the very end of April. Here we see this Gulf of Alaska trough. That corresponds well to the pattern we're observing now. However, you can see the PNA falls as we head further into May. And if that happens, we could see also a cooler and wetter start to May. So the PNA agrees pretty well with the AAM here that we could see a cooler and wetter start to May. What about our MJO? Once again, the Madden-Julian Oscillation is areas of thunderstorms moving across the Indian Ocean from west to east. It goes through these phases that correspond to different longitudes. So phase 1 is here pretty close to Africa. Phases 2 and 3 are in the Indian Ocean, and then phases 4 and 5 are areas of thunderstorms closer to Australia. So here currently we're in phase 3, and the Canadian model wants to take the MJO into phase 4 and possibly 5. And I'm going to show you how closely this lines up with the model forecast for the next 10 days on some of the ensembles. So here's phase 4 on the top here for the beginning of May. See these blue colors? Once again, that's a signal for cooler and wetter conditions. So the MJO, in addition to the PNA and the AAM, is also showing that we could start May on a cooler and wetter note. And then as we move into phase 5, we see some troughing linger over the west coast, maybe a hint of ridging building offshore. This actually compares very well to what the ensembles are showing. Here's the Canadian ensemble for 1 week from today, so next Sunday afternoon. See this area of low pressure extending even further into the west coast compared to what we're seeing now. See, that lines up pretty well with MJO phase 4. And then for 12 or 13 days out, we're still seeing some hint of troughing here, but a ridge starting to build offshore. Now, this is kind of an omega block pattern here with 2 areas of low pressure on either side of an area of high pressure to the north. And again, that's roughly similar to the MJO correlation for phase 5 in May. So interesting to note how the models are generally in agreement with the Canadian forecast for the MJO. So as we move further into May, looks like we are going to have a cool and wet start, but what could the heart of the month look like? Well, it looks like we could warm back up heading into the middle of May. Here's the Canadian ensemble showing ridging developing by the middle of the month, and the CFS weeklies, that's a climate forecast system, also showing ridging and warmer and drier conditions mid-month for May over our area. And I think this agrees well with the AAM. As the AAM falls toward the end of the month, that could lead to this kind of a pattern where we have troughing further up north near Alaska and ridging over the western U.S. I think that agrees very well with what the models are showing. And I did promise to give you a sneak peek into June. So here it is. 2 things I want to show you. Sea surface temperatures. We've been seeing some cooling start to show up in the ENSO regions here. And the main area of the ENSO region that forecasters look at when they're tracking the development of El Nino or La Nina is this region 3.4, which is right around here, southeast of Hawaii. And here, if we start seeing some negative anomalies, so cooler than normal sea surface temperatures in this Nino 3.4 region, this could also be a signal that June could be cooler and potentially wetter than normal. Here's the correlation. See that trough over the Pacific Northwest? So we'll have to watch these sea surface temperatures, but right now there's evidence that some cooling is starting to show up, and that could lead to this kind of a pattern, cooler and wetter for June. Also, we've talked about how the atmospheric angular momentum is going to drop near the end of May. In May, that's kind of a warmer and drier signal, but as we head into June, if this AAM stays negative, that's actually a cooler and wetter signal for June over our area. So again, that's a sneak peek into June. If this forecast verifies, that could be good news for the fire season. So, not a promise, but we'll have to keep an eye on this. So, in summary, right now we're kind of in a battle zone between high pressure to our southeast and low pressure to our northwest. We're going to see some Pacific moisture try to push in over the next week. And in particular, it looks like our main chance of showers is going to be Wednesday into Thursday. We do have the MJO going into phases 4 and 5. And I think that agrees really well with model trends, and that favors a cooler and wetter start to May. We also have the AAM turning more positive. That once again favors a cooler start to May. However, as the atmospheric angular momentum falls, we could see warmer and drier conditions, maybe even hot conditions, for mid-month in May. And then that June sneak peek suggests maybe a cooler and wetter June this year, especially if the AAM continues to be negative, and if the MJO loops back through phases 1, 2, and 3, which it could do in June. So guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Don't forget to set your notifications. I'll likely just be on a weekend forecasting schedule during the summer, except if we start to see some smoke impacts from wildfires, and then I might post more often. But please leave a like if you enjoyed the forecast, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.